If you've been in the recruiting process for any period of time, or your kid has been in the process, you know that sending emails to college coaches is important. It's one of the best ways to get on college coaches' radars. But the thing is, if you have been sending emails, you know that it's actually pretty difficult to get a response from a college coach. And there's one primary reason that this is the case, and that is that college coaches are getting anywhere from 50 to 100 emails every single week. So if you're sending a generic email like everybody else, there's a good chance that that coach is not going to open your email, read your email, watch your video. And that's a huge problem because the primary goal of email in the recruiting process, despite what anybody else says, is to get the coach to watch your video. If the coach watches your video, then if they like what they see, they will help you and take you to the next step. They will say, we need to come watch you play. We want to hop on the phone with you, something like that. So when it comes to getting responses from college coaches, not camp invites, not generic camp invites that everybody gets, but personal responses that show a real, genuine level of interest, there's a couple big mistakes that a lot of players and parents make, and I've seen this working with athletes on a daily basis. So what I want to do is I want to share some of those mistakes that players are making and what you should be doing instead, and hopefully that helps you get more responses. So the first thing is self-evaluations. It's really common for players and even parents, especially parents, when they're writing an email to a college coach, they will evaluate themselves and give a description of the type of player that they are. They'll say, "Oh, I hustle really hard and I have a really good game IQ." And they write this profile paragraph of the type of player that they are. And this isn't helping your case at all because college coaches don't trust you to evaluate yourself accurately. So all you're doing is rambling and making your email longer than it needs to be. And when a college coach gets 50 to 100 emails, if they click on your email and they see that it is an essay long 3-paragraph deal, they're not going to read it. They're just going to click off immediately because chances are it's not worth their time. So instead, what needs to happen is you need to remove all self-evaluations. Look, college coaches don't trust you to accurately evaluate yourself. That means that every single thing that you include in your email needs to be a fact and not an opinion. Anything that is an opinion, take your email, go through it, take a highlighter, even if you're in like Google Docs or whatever, take a highlighter and highlight every single sentence in your email that is an opinion, and then remove it. Because college coaches don't trust your opinions. They don't trust you to evaluate yourself. So no opinions, facts only, and especially no self-evaluations. They care about real numbers and real video. They don't care about your generic self-evaluations. Number 2, no stats in your emails. This is controversial. A lot of people will say that's crazy. You shouldn't do that. Listen, this works for us. We help lots of athletes get dozens of responses from D1 schools. We don't include any stats in our first email, and there's a very specific reason why. There also is an exception to this, which I'll talk about at the end of this little part. No stats in emails. Here's the reason why. Stats don't give any context on how that stat actually came to be. If I say that I'm a baseball player and I have a 400 batting average, and if you don't play baseball, that's a great average, okay? That doesn't tell you what kind of player I am though, because what if I'm playing against horrible competition? What if I'm playing in great weather versus really bad weather? If I'm playing in South Dakota versus Texas, those are 2 different levels of competition, 2 different environments. So that stat doesn't give me any context on the player at all. This is why college coaches use stats to evaluate players, but it's not the main thing they use. The main thing they use is video because they trust what they can see with their eyes. So are they going to use stats to evaluate players? Yes. Is it the primary way? No. They trust what they can see with their eyes because a college coach can look at a player and pretty instantly, within 30 seconds, know if they're in the ballpark of being talented enough to play at their school. And then all the recruiting that happens after that is seeing if it's a good fit, if it's a good fit for both sides. That's really what the recruiting process is about. Now, there are a couple exceptions to this video rule, and that is for sports that are purely athleticism based. Obviously, all sports have an element of athleticism, but a lot of sports have a lot of skill involved too. Now, when we talk about an athleticism-based sport, this would be something like track and field, swimming. These are quantifiable time numbers. If I'm faster than you, there's no skill involved. I'm just more athletic. I'm faster than you are. That's not true all the time for baseball, basketball, football. Of course, athleticism is involved, but you also have a lot of skill. And that's why video is so critical, because you have more skill that's involved, not just athleticism. So if you play track and field, or if you are swimming, then stats and emails is a little bit different because it's quantifiable. Then we recommend sending stats in your emails. But if you play baseball, basketball, lacrosse, soccer, volleyball, any of those sports are skill-based, so you should be sending email over stats every time. Let me give you an example of why this is so important. Let's say that you include a stat in your email that is not quite as good as you thought it was. You thought it was a really good stat. That's why you included it. But the college coach is actually looking for a stat that's better than that. They're looking for players who have a better stat than that. So they see that stat in the email and they click off of it immediately because they think that player is not good enough for my team. Now consider the alternative. Let's say you don't include that stat in the email and you only include video instead. So now what happens is they read your email, they watch your video, and they say, I like this player. I like the way they move. This looks like they might be able to play for our team. Then they come across a stat that wasn't quite good enough. What happens now? Well, now they're seeing that stat through the lens of video. So they're going to justify why that stat might not be as good as it is. They say, well, I really liked the video, so maybe he just had a bad season. Maybe the coach was messing with him, right? They're going to justify why that stat is the way it is, and they might give you another chance. And so now, instead of that coach clicking off immediately because you only sent the stat, now they're going to be able to see that stat through the lens of video, and you might give yourself another chance to get recruited by that school and eventually get a scholarship. That's why video is more critical than stats. And the last thing that we see so often is emailing from a position of weakness. Remember this, the recruiting process, you want a scholarship, but it's ultimately about what you can give. If you are focused on what you can give and not what you can get, you will get more scholarships than you know what to do with. What this means is that you need to provide value to a college coach. They have a problem that they need to solve. They're looking for a specific position in a specific grad class. That's what they need for their team. You need to show that you are the perfect fit and you are the perfect solution for that problem. The issue is that a lot of players will email from a position of weakness where they're just trying to get everything for themselves. What this looks like is saying things like, it's my dream to play at your school. I hope I can play for your school. Am I good enough to play for your school? All of these phrases are a position of weakness. You're basically saying, can you do me a favor by giving me an opportunity? Consider the alternative, where if you are showcasing your value and you're letting your video do the talking and you're making it incredibly clear that you're good enough for their team, you don't need to ask any of those questions. You don't need to say any of that, because you're actually doing the college coach a favor. He has a problem that he needs solved. You're showing him exactly where to find the solution to it. That is a position of strength. You are actually doing the college coach a favor. So when you email coaches in this way, from a position of strength, you're going to find that you're going to get a lot more responses. Because think about it this way. Anybody that is begging for an opportunity probably isn't good enough. And a college coach knows that. So if they get an email where there's any hint of begging or hoping for an opportunity, they're not going to respond. Because if a player was so good, like a really good player emailed them, they wouldn't need to do that. They wouldn't feel the need to do that. And so that can be an indicator to a college coach that this is a player that they should be recruiting if they are emailing from a position of strength. These are the three biggest mistakes that we see players make all the time. But remember this, the only goal with email is to get the coach to watch the video. There's nothing else. That's the only goal. Everything that you do in the recruiting process knocks over the next domino. So when you write your subject line for an email, the subject line is not going to get you a scholarship. The goal of the subject line is to get the coach to to get the coach to open the email. The goal of the body of text in the email is to get the coach to watch your video. The goal of the video is to get the coach to either come watch you play or hop on a phone call with you, right? And then you just keep knocking over dominoes until you have more scholarships than you know what to do with. So when it comes to your email, the goal of the email is not to get you a scholarship. That's not what's going to happen. The goal of the email is to get the coach to watch your video. Once they watch your video, then you can take it to the next step. And that's how you ultimately, if you get through enough steps, you ultimately earn a scholarship. So I hope that this was helpful. If you need help in the recruiting process, we offer a number of different things. You can go to d1scholarship.com and you can find everything that you're looking for.